All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm here with Julie Seaman from Department of Transportation, and I'm going to throw it over to Julie before we get started to give everybody a welcome. Go ahead, Julie.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for attending today's session. Sit back and just enjoy, and we'll provide plenty of opportunities for you to ask questions. And we're also joined today by Eve Chamberlain from the North Jersey Transportation Planning Authority, and Adam Erbolino, our District 1 manager, and my staff, Milan Nabachia and Brian Wirtz. Okay.
Okay. So on that note, hello, my name is Leanne Von Hagen. I work at the New Jersey Safe Routes Resource Center at Rutgers University, and we've been asked by the department to run this quick training for you about applying for the Safe Routes School Program grant funds. And before we get started, what I'd like to do is a quick poll. And my colleague Trish, I hope she's handy there with the poll. Yes, she is. Yay, Trish. So we just want to ask those who are here if you would please answer, have you applied for or assisted with an application for Safe Routes to School infrastructure grants in the past? So yes or no, we'd love to hear from you. And if you're answering other, if you can go open the Q&A chat and just mention what you mean by other, we'd love to get some feedback. So we so glad, it looks like we have almost everybody answering. Let's keep it open for another couple seconds. It looks like we've got several yes and was awarded the grant, so congratulations. And the no, because I was not sure how to get started. That's what we're here for today, so that's good too. Where are we with the poll results, Trish?
Well, I think we have as many as we can get. We do have an other, and in the Q&A it was because they weren't ready by the deadline.
Yeah, I know that always happens too, that sometimes you just can't quite get it all together. Understand. All right, so I guess we can do the poll.
Yep.
Okay. So before we get started, I want to just go over a couple of housekeeping things. So first off, we are recording this webinar and it will be available after we're done today. So you'll be able to go onto our website at saferoutesnj.org to rewatch this recording, all the whole fun of it, I hope. And hopefully as we'll be answering some of your questions and your concerns as we're going through, but we do have two places where we're going to also stop for Q&A. We are going to use that Q&A function to do the Q&A, so I hope you found that button on your screen. Please feel free to just put your question in as best you can. Don't worry about it being a perfect question or having the wording just right. We're not here to critique that at all. But if you can go ahead, even as the presentation's going, throw some things in Q&A. Some of the folks that are here from the DOT and the MPOs may be able to answer your questions as we go along. And then if not, we'll get to the Q&A section and see if we can get clarification and get all your questions answered for today. So on that note, I'm going to jump in and make sure my slides are good here. Okay. So I'm just going to briefly tell you a little bit about our agenda today. We are going to go over in brief the federal aid program and the specifics about Safe Routes to School, including a walk through the application and a bit about the grant application process. And what we'll do is we'll end with some tips and strategies and where to find helpful resources. Okay, so I like to begin with the timeline of the grant solicitation first, so you have an idea of our goalposts. So the key dates to keep in mind. The DOT mailed the solicitation letter on May 25th. This today is one of 4 application information webinars scheduled through the end of September. Applicants will be able to sign up for one-on-one meetings with New Jersey DOT's local aid staff to discuss your application through September 17th. I'll be going into that a little bit more later. This cycle's grant deadline is October 14th, and it is anticipated that the grants will be awarded in 2022. The selection process does take time and has multiple sign-offs, so do not anticipate a notification about the awards before the end of this year. Okay, so when we do look at the New Jersey DOT grant funding opportunities, they are divided into state programs and federal programs. I'm going to talk a little bit about the state programs later in the presentation. Today, we're going to focus on the Safe Routes to School federal programs, which is actually part of the Transportation Alternatives Program. The National Highway Trust Fund is a transportation fund in the United States, which receives money from a federal fuel tax. Every state in the country receives an apportionment of the National Trust Fund. Safe Routes is a subset block grant funding of the federal government. So, and what New Jersey does is they take the transportation alternatives and separates it into transportation alternative set-asides and the Safe Routes to School funds. So they are two separate grant applications. Safe Routes to School is part of a history of federal transportation bills. We are currently under what's called the FAST Act, which authorized $305 billion nationally from fiscal years 2016 through 2020, with an extension granted to the end of this year, or I think it's somewhere in December of this year. The new federal transportation bill is making its way through Congress, so if you have any crystal balls and can help us out with that, we'd love to hear your thoughts, but until then, we are under all the regulations of the federal FAST Act for this grant. Solicitation of the applications, including project selection and funding, are administered jointly by New Jersey Department of Transportation and the 3 New Jersey Regional Metropolitan Planning Organizations, also called MPOs. So 50% of the Safe Routes funds are sub-allocated through New Jersey DOT to the Metropolitan Planning Organizations that do cover New Jersey. This means that 50% of the applications are awarded by each MPO, and MPO staff are part of the selection committee. So these maps provide some of the contacts you might want to keep in mind if you're interested in learning more about the grant program or have specific questions. Here's an interesting thing we get a lot of good feedback from. This is a breakdown of the number of applications, requested amount, and number of grants awarded for the past 3 solicitation rounds. For the 2022, the programmed amount is $5.56 million. However, DOT and the 3 MPOs are selecting up to $10 million in Safe Routes to School projects this grant round. So you can see that this is a competitive grant process. There are always many more grant applications than funding available. And I mentioned it earlier, but I like to stress this point. The deadline for applications is October 14th at 11:59 p.m. There will be no applications accepted after that time period. So you need to hit submit before that time. All right, so next we'll go over some program details. And again, please use the Q&A function for any questions, which we'll get to shortly. So we like to ask this question first: what is Safe Routes to School? Hopefully you've heard about this program and know a little bit about it. But basically, the Safe Routes to School program is a federal, state, and local effort that creates safer conditions for walking and bicycling. So where it's safe, we want to get more children, including those children with disabilities, walking and bicycling or rolling. And where it's not safe, we want to make it safe. The Safe Routes to School program also encourages children to walk and bike to school, fostering a healthy, active lifestyle at an early age. The objective of the Safe Routes grant programs are to facilitate projects that will improve safety and reduce traffic, reduce fuel consumption, and air pollution around schools. So who is eligible to apply? The majority of applications are from municipal governments. However, counties, schools, school districts, or boards of education may also submit an application for Safe Routes to School grants. This includes public, charter, and private schools, provided that the project is in the public right-of-way. Nonprofits are highly encouraged to partner with their local agency, such as their municipality or county or school district. Infrastructure funds are intended to be used for projects that facilitate walking and/or bicycling to school. Proposals must define a complete, identifiable, and usable facility or activity. Funds are not available for partial activities that cannot function as a complete and useful whole project or do not have independent utility. So what kind of projects are eligible? Anything that encourages and enables children in grades K through 8 to walk and bicycle to school, which means the project must be within 2 miles of a K through 8 school. And for this grant, infrastructure only projects. For infrastructure projects, public funds must be spent on projects within the public right-of-way. This may include projects on private land that have public access easements. Public property includes lands that are owned by a public entity, including lands owned by public school districts. For projects on private land, there must be a written legal easement or other written legally binding agreement that ensures public access to the project. So here's some examples of pedestrian safety projects, which include new or upgraded sidewalks, ADA curb ramps, which provide an accessible route for people with disabilities who can use them to safely transition from a roadway to a sidewalk and vice versa. Crosswalk installation or striping, pedestrian crossing signs indicating when to walk or don't walk, pedestrian push buttons or signal heads, school zone delineation, including sign striping and lighting. So those are some of the examples and more common things, but this is not intended to be a comprehensive list. There may be other eligible projects if they meet the objective of improving pedestrian safety and access around schools. Here are some examples of bicycle safety projects: on-street bike lanes or shoulders, off-road bike paths or trails, bike route signs, bicycle parking, including bicycle parking racks and lockers. So please remember, bicycle parking is often a very important element of providing safe bicycle projects. And again, this is not intended to be a comprehensive list. There may be other eligible projects if they meet the objective of improving bicycle safety in and around schools. Safe routes infrastructure projects should also include traffic calming treatments and mechanisms to reduce the speed or other negative effects of motor vehicle traffic. So some of those examples include curb extensions, center median islands, permanent radar display, speed humps and tables, full and partial street closures, raised crossings, raised intersections, pavement markings that reduce travel lane widths and road diets, flashing beacons, bicycle sensitive signal devices, pedestrian countdown signals, pedestrian activated signal upgrades, and sight distance improvements. So again, traffic calming crosswalk treatments, all good stuff to put in your proposals. So that leads me to a few things that are not eligible, just so we're clear. So anything that is not infrastructure. So education and encouragement programs are not eligible. However, they are available. There is free technical assistance available through the Safe Routes regional coordinators at all 8 of the New Jersey Transportation Management Associations, and I'll tell you how to access that shortly. Other things that are not eligible, projects that only serve high school students. This funding is for K through 8 schools. However, if the project serves a K through 8 school and also happens to include a high school in that area, that's okay. You don't have to exclude the high school. The primary focus has to be the K through 8 students accessing K through 8 schools. Funds cannot be used to make traffic smoother or easier for parents to drop off and pick up their children. This is primarily about making it easier for children to walk and bike. However, improvements that may remove motor vehicles from the school zones, like moving parking so that parents can park off-site and walk their kids into the school for the last few bits, that is something that could be part of the application. And also ineligible is things like crossing guard salaries. So let's talk about eligible costs. Only construction costs are eligible under this grant. It's important to note that costs for construction inspection services should be identified separately if funds are desired. Project costs not eligible for funding include administrative costs, miscellaneous contingencies, right-of-way, utility relocation costs, and uniform traffic directors unless required by design. Requirements of the infrastructure and grant include the following, and if any of these following 5 are not met, the applications will not be considered. So first and foremost, applications must include signed and dated resolutions of support from the municipality and either a resolution or letter of support from the school board. In addition, a letter of support is needed from owners of any other right-of-way, for example, a letter of support from county along county roadways or parks. Resolutions are not accepted after the application deadline. A maintenance commitment from the application is also required. This is usually the municipality. The maintenance commitment statement can be included as part of the resolution of support. An example of this kind of resolution with a maintenance commitment can be found on our saferoutesnj.org website and as part of the SAGE application. Applicants must identify a primary point of contact called the person of responsible charge. And basically, this person of responsible charge must be a full-time employee and cannot be a consultant. As I mentioned, the project must be located within 2 miles of the K-8 school. And on this last note, on this number 5, in the previous grant rounds, gathering the number of students walking and biking to school through student arrival and departure tallies was part of the application. But due to COVID-19, student travel tallies are not required for this grant application. However, if you are awarded the grant, you will be required to provide these student arrival and dismissal tallies upon notification of the grant approval. Each application will be reviewed by a selection committee and on-site by NJDOT staff. Applications will be evaluated using an established program criteria of a 25-point rating system. Each project will be assessed based solely on the content of the application and attachments. The application must clearly and accurately describe the problem with documentation including crash reports, photographs, maps, survey results, etc. One important point, your construction solutions should address your problem. I know that sounds obvious, but for example, if your problem statement in the application includes, say, concerns about speeding, but your design solutions do not include traffic calming, you are not necessarily addressing the problems identified. So make sure the problem statement and your solutions do match. The applicant should explain how the project has the potential to make walking or cycling to school safer, how it can increase physical activity and the number of students walking and bicycling to school. Connectivity is also important. Applicants should describe the bigger picture of how the project connects to existing local or regional places to walk and bike, and how the applicant plans to evaluate the project, like implementing speed studies or tallies of the number of students walking and bicycling, and has that included in the project schedule. The applicant's past experience with NJDOT grants also influences the rating process. Past experience completing the federal authorization process within the allotted time frame, if the applicant has constructed projects within the last 5 years to improve conditions for bicycling and walking, are included in the rating scores. The applicant needs to create realistic project schedules and milestones and detailed construction cost estimates that include items like construction inspection. And please remember, these are long-term grants. Plan on the authorization process taking the full 2 years. For project selection, location is important. You can receive an extra consideration if the project is located in special designated areas, like if you are a New Jersey Department of Community Affairs targeted urban municipality, or also called TUMS, or in an opportunity zone, or within a school development authority district. It's also important to address the safety issues by identifying if railroad crossings or highway ramps crossings will be improved as part of this project. Another area of extra consideration is showing a demonstrated commitment to safety. Communities and schools that show commitment to walking and bicycling by implementing various improvements or programs or have taken steps to plan for better pedestrian and bicycling facilities will receive extra consideration. This includes municipalities with adopted complete and green streets policies, school districts with supportive walk and bike to school policies or supports active travel in their school wellness policy, schools, school districts, or municipalities that have been awarded New Jersey Safe Routes Recognition Program certification at the gold, silver, and bronze levels, or have a school or school district's travel plan or bicycle pedestrian travel plan that includes the proposed project and that the plan was completed in the last 5 years. And schools and towns that support and promote walking and bicycling with activities such as walk and bike to school days, walking school buses, bike trains, bike and walk safety programs, and bicycle rodeos or clinics. So basically, you get extra consideration the more that you can show support through planning efforts and existing programs that encourage students to walk and bike. All grant applications will be reviewed for deliberate and actionable considerations of equity in underserved communities. Consideration will be given to applications that provide additional benefits to a community or communities identified in the following categories: Title VI of the Civil Rights Act, environmental justice communities, limited English proficiency populations, and individuals with disabilities. Census data will be used to determine if a project meets this equity criteria. The following data sets will be used: percent low income, percent minority, less than high school education, linguistic isolation, individuals under age 5 and under age 18, individuals over age 64, and individuals with disabilities. So just to know, as an applicant, you will not be required to show or map census data. Just know that DOT will be looking at these factors as an equity consideration as part of the review of each proposal. If you have multiple projects you're considering to apply for, look for the project located in the section of your town that has the greatest need. In your application, be sure to clearly denote the project limits in your for your application. Okay, so I did go through the part about opportunity zones pretty quickly, and maybe you were like, ooh, opportunity zones, am I? How do I find out more? So one of the good things we have in the state is the Department of Community Affairs has a mapping tool that's called the Department of Community Affairs Community Asset Map. And it does provide the opportunity zones and some other points of interest, like say libraries, that you can add to your map. Once you have those things, those areas identified, you can then print your map. And so this could be something easily added into your application. The list of targeted urban municipalities can also be found in the SAGE application and also on the Department of Community Affairs website. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague Trish Sanchez, who's going to talk to you about the SAGE application and walk you through the online grant application process. Thanks, Trish.
Great. Thank you, Leanne. Hi, I'm Trish Sanchez, and I'm with the Safe Routes Resource Center at Rutgers University. I work with Leanne. And next, I'm going to walk you through the details of the SAGE application. Sorry, I'm trying to find my notes. Okay, here we go. Sorry about that. And as again, we're going to take a break after I review the grant application. But I know some of you have already put some questions into chat, so feel free to put your questions in. Oh, sorry. Yeah. I'll put my video on, sorry. Feel free to put your questions in chat, and that way we can make sure they're answered. I know that Julie has already been answering some of those questions in chat. So to apply for the Safe Routes to School grant, applicants will need to utilize the SAGE or what's called the System for Administering Grants Electronically. So each municipality does have access to SAGE. Likely it's the administrator. So check with that person first. Municipalities and counties already have an authorized official registered with access to SAGE from the New Jersey Department of Community Affairs. If you're a school district or a school and you don't have access to a SAGE, contact NJDOT local aid to request access. And if you don't have access to SAGE and you're not representing a municipality, county, or school district, you can apply as a new user online through the NJDOT website. And there are helpful links located on the SAGE homepage if you need additional help. And you can contact the NJDOT Local Aid Resource Center if you have more in-depth concerns. So you can start your SAGE application once you're logged in at any time, and you can update it and edit it as needed. This year, state-funded SAGE applications, I know this is a federal application, but there is a new mapping tool. And this tool is embedded in the SAGE application, and there is training on how to use this new tool. It's embedded within the state-funded application, and it's also available once your application has been initiated. So that's a new feature. Okay, now I'm going to walk you through the SAGE application screens. So once you log into SAGE, you'll see the 5 program requirements for the Safe Routes to School grant. There are 5. Number 1 is the resolution, letters of support. Number 2 are the maintenance commitment letters or resolutions. Number 3 is the responsible charge. Number 4 is the distance to schools. And in the past, Safe Routes to School application had requirement number 5, which included submitting student arrival and departure travel tallies from K-8 schools that the project will benefit. However, they will not be required this round due to COVID restrictions, as Leanne mentioned. So grant recipients will be required to submit these tallies once they're notified of approval of the grant. So now I'm going to talk you through each of these requirements in detail. Because if any of these requirements are not met, unfortunately, the project and application will not be considered. So each application must include, as attachments, board-approved resolutions of support from the governing body applying for the grant. Resolutions are required because they demonstrate compliance with federal regulations, and they allow an opportunity for public participation and input. Resolutions further demonstrate that there's a formal local stakeholder support of your project. And as mentioned, they must be dated within 1 year of the solicitation letter, which was May 25th, 2021. The resolution must be signed, which provides evidence of the board action adopting that resolution, as unsigned resolutions will not be accepted. And please make sure the resolution refers to your project. So letters can be signed by the mayor, county freeholder, or the executive director of the organization. And they're also required from the participating school board, Board of Education, and the owner of the public right-of-way in which the project is to be located. Usually it's a municipality or county. In addition, if the ownership of the public right-of-way where the project is proposed is different than the applicant, then they must show support for that project in the form of a letter or a resolution. If the applicant is a private school, it can be a letter signed by the executive director in lieu of a resolution. If your project is also on a state road, no resolution of support will be needed from NJDOT, but you will need to coordinate with the appropriate regional NJDOT office to receive the necessary highway occupancy permit approvals prior to authorization of construction. So once you've received the grant. As with the governing body, letters and resolutions must be signed. They must be passed and dated within 1 year of May 25th, 2021. And please make sure that the project is referred to in your letter and resolution. And again, samples of resolutions can be found on our website at saferoutesnj.org. So the second program requirement is maintenance commitment. The applicant must indicate and certify continual ownership and maintenance of the life of this project. So if the applicant does not have jurisdiction over the right-of-way where the project is proposed, then a signed letter or board-approved resolution must be provided. Again, these must be signed and dated within 1 year of the solicitation date of May 25th, 2021. Unsigned letters will not be accepted. And again, make sure the letter and resolution refers to your project. So here's a sample of a resolution, which includes both support of the project from the municipality, which is requirement number 2, and maintenance commitment, which is requirement number 2. So there's a sample which is embedded in the SAGE application, and you can also look at samples on our website. So if the applicant does not have jurisdiction over the right-of-way where the project is proposed, as I mentioned, then you must have a signed letter or board-approved resolution. But they can also be combined into one letter showing both support and maintenance commitment. Number 3 requirement is that applicants must provide a full-time employee as the responsible charge of your requirement. So this person must be a full-time employee of the applicant, and please include the name, title, and employer of the person who will be responsible charge. Unfortunately, consultants are not eligible to serve as responsible charge as they are accountable for the project and expected to perform duties and functions following federal requirements and day-to-day operations. So such as administering activities, including cost, timing, and adhering to contract requirements, quality, scope, maintaining familiarity of day-to-day operations, participating in decisions about changes in conditions or scope, reviewing financial processes, transactions documentation, and directing project staff. Requirement number 4 is that the project must be within 2 miles of a K-8 school. So the application must include and attach a map showing the location of the school or schools involved and where the proposed improvements of the project are, and indicate the distance between them. So again, applications that only benefit students in grades 9 through 12 are not eligible. And due to COVID, as I mentioned before, student arrival and departure travel tallies, that's a tongue twister, are not required due to COVID. So you won't need to include those in the application submission, but you will be required to submit them upon notification of the grant approval if you are selected. So student travel tallies are administered to students on 3 days of any given week, and that determines how children travel to and from school. And they should be conducted at each of the K-8 schools that will be impacted by your proposed infrastructure improvements. So tallies should include every grade of that school. And if you need to see a look at the forms and instructions, you can look at our website at saferoutesnj.org. Okay, so the next section of the application, once you've gone through all those mandatory requirements, is the type of improvement. So here you'll pick the infrastructure and engineering project that best represents your improvement. So it could be a bikeway, which includes both on and off bike road paths, lanes, routes, and parking. Pedestrian safety, which includes sidewalks, ADA curb ramps, pedestrian crossing signs, push buttons and signal heads, or pedestrian safety and bikeways, including school zone delineation, driver feedback signs, and traffic calming. So after that, you'll need to name the title of your project, and you'll have up to 100 characters, which includes spaces. And then you'll choose the county and the municipality where the project is located. The next section of the SAGE application is the K-8 school information for each school that is participating or will benefit from your project. So you'll provide the contact information for the designated lead coordinator from each of those schools. And if the school is part of a shared school district, indicate yes or no, and if yes, select what municipalities. Continuing on to school information, you'll indicate the grade levels at each school and the number of students. Then you'll enter the estimated number or percentage of students who currently walk to school, bike to school, ride the bus, get dropped off, or other. And please indicate your source of this travel information. If student arrival and departure tallies were completed, please indicate that. Enter the number of students that live within 2 miles of the school and the number of additional students expected to walk or bike to school because of your project. Then you'll indicate whether courtesy or hazard busing is provided, and indicate whether the school is part of a school's development authority district and located within a targeted urban municipality or TUMS. And these lists are also provided as links within SAGE, and they're on the website. The next section of the grant application is demonstrated commitment. Many New Jersey municipalities and schools have been recognized by the New Jersey Safe Routes program for their commitment to and support of the program. So if your community has been certified with either bronze, silver, or gold level recognition status in the last 2 years, you'll indicate yes or no and attach the certificate or press release. And the current list is available on our website at saferoutesnj.org. A school travel plan helps to create safe routes for bike and pedestrian travel by identifying key contacts and members and problem areas and solutions. So there's a Safe Routes to School travel plan guide that's created that has an example format and content, and you can also view that through a link on SAGE, on the SAGE application, and it's also on our website. So you'll indicate if the need has been identified in the school travel plan within the last 5 years, and yes or no. And if it's yes, you'll attach those relevant pages to the school travel of the school travel plan. Also, does the school To be served by the project, have a written policy supporting walking and biking to school. If yes, you'll attach that policy, or if it's in a handbook, and just indicate those pages. As you know, adopting policy is a mandated function of school board, so they establish direction for the school and all of the district and set consistent expectations district-wide. So adopting a school district bicycling or walking policy standardizes it for the whole district and shows support. So if your school district has adopted a school wellness policy that encourages walking and biking to school, you'll indicate yes or no. And if it's yes, please attach that policy. And if you are interested in looking at any model school wellness policies with safe routes to school encouragement, you can look at our website. So continuing on to the demonstrated commitment section, if the municipality has adopted a complete streets policy, you'll choose yes or no, and if yes, you'll attach that policy. Additional consideration is given to schools and communities that have shown commitment to walking and bicycling by implementing various improvements or projects and have taken steps to make better pedestrian and bicycling facilities. So if any of the schools, the municipality or other partners have initiated or participated in any programs to encourage walking and bicycling to school, you'll select yes or no. And if yes, you can provide a description of up to 2,500 characters. So in that narrative, be sure to emphasize any recently implemented programs within the last 2 years and describe any programs clearly. If you had walk to school days or bike rodeos. Then you'll have the opportunity to answer if the school, municipality, or other partners constructed any physical improvements. Yes or no. And if yes, again, you can provide a narrative description of up to 2,500 characters. So here you'll emphasize any recently implemented improvements, such as bike racks, sidewalks, signals, and any improvements that are in process, except for those that are to be funded under this program. Then you'll be asked, does the proposed project connect to a regional bicycle or pedestrian network? Yes or no. The network should connect the project to a neighborhood, park, library, or other location of interest to students. So if it's yes, you'll attach and show that on a map. The next section of the grant application is the problem statement. So here you will describe the obstacles, physical or other, to walking or bicycling to school, and you'll have up to 2,500 characters to do so. And then you'll describe the current hazards facing children who walk and bike to school, 2,500 characters. And here you can, they encourage to reference any supporting documentation. So if you have any maps, history of problems, accident reports, speed studies, anything else that you can attach to support your problem. The next section is the problem documentation. So here you'll attach a location map showing that 2-mile radius, and then you'll label that school site and the problem area. So you'll also be able to attach up to 10 photographs of that problem and include any maps, photographs, any other data which can provide evidence of that problem. You'll upload that into Sage. You can also attach up to 10 additional files, such as crash data and reports and maps. And this should provide evidence of the severity of your problem. The next section is the proposal section, which allows you to enter the project limits. So you'll put to and from limits up to 100 characters. And then you'll describe the project in summary, indicating the schools which the project will take place and be affected. And you'll have up to 2,500 characters. So be sure to indicate the schools that will benefit and explain how the project will create a safer walking and bicycling environment, and how the children will benefit from the project, and whether it targets one neighborhood or the entire school community. You'll also explain how the project will create a safe walking and bicycling environment up to 2,500 characters. And you'll explain how the project will encourage more children to walk and bike to school up to 2,500 characters, and indicate the distance from the school. Again, it must be within 2 miles. So show on a street location map the proposed improvement, the location, any walking and bicycling routes, and then provide information about location and show the location on a map. So within the schedule section of the application, you'll attach a project schedule from start to finish. It can be in a table format, can be in a list format. Make sure you indicate your project milestones, such as easement acquisitions, right-of-way, utility relocations, etc. And put in the number of months from written authorization until you proceed to project completion and evaluation. So projects must receive federal authorization within 2 years of the date of the grant award when you're notified of the project selection. And if it's not authorized within 2 years, the grant may be rescinded and you may have to reapply. So the Safe Routes to School program does not reimburse applications that are incurred prior to the federal authorization. So you must be authorized before you can begin construction. Okay, so continuing on to the schedule, you'll be asked, is the road or road work planned within the project limits? Is utility or road work, planned within the project limits over the next 5 years? Yes or no? Does the project require utility relocation? Yes or no? And if yes, you'll explain up to 500 characters. Are any permits required? Yes or no? And if yes, explain. And is the purchase of right-of-way required before you start construction? Yes or no? And if yes, please explain. Continuing, does the project intersect a state highway? And indicate if it is, which highway? And if the intersection is signalized, yes or no? Is there a railroad crossing or highway ramp that will be improved? Yes or no? And if yes, please explain. And will construction impact traffic at a railroad crossing outside the project limits? Yes or no? So the next section of the application is the cost estimate. As I mentioned, the federal aid Safe Routes to School program funds infrastructure engineering projects for construction only. So all projects must be within the jurisdiction of the funding recipient. So for construction costs, please provide a length of proposed improvement, bikeway miles, pedestrian miles. If you are, please include your full-time construction inspection cost if it's applicable. And the budget should include the costs, if any, associated with evaluating the results of the project. So applicants are encouraged to utilize their own funds from other sources to pay for costs, such as environmental documentation, design, and other soft costs. And a detailed cost estimate of the materials and tasks needed to accomplish the activities for your project must be presented as an attachment. Federal funds for Safe Routes to School projects, as I mentioned, are provided to grantees on a reimbursement basis only. So then you'll enter the amount of construction cost and attach your detailed cost estimate, and then indicate the total project cost and the total amount that you're requesting from this application. All right, we're almost done. The next section is the partnership and public outreach section. And this allows you to attach up to 5 letters of support, and they can be from community organizations, resident groups, committees, business associations, any interested parties. Please be sure to ask partners to address their letters of support of your project to you, to the application, not to DOT. And again, these letters must be signed and dated within 1 year of the solicitation date of May 25th. And then the next section is the evaluation section. And here you'll describe the results of your project and how it will be measured, up to 2,500 characters. So at a minimum, we want grant recipients to record the number of type of improvements installed and the results of pre and post project surveys on how students travel to and from school. You'll describe any safety or health benefits that will be evaluated using at least one of the following potential measures that are listed there. So increasing the number of children walking, changing perception, increased awareness of walking and bicycling, any of those. All right, So at this point, I think we're going to stop and address any chat questions or any other comments that are in the chat, in the Q&A.
Thanks, Trish. Yeah, that's always a lot to go through, but helpful to just walk through the application.
Yeah.
And I see, Julie, you were great at answering a bunch of questions that came in already. We have one additional, yes, thanks, Julie. We have an additional about clarification. Should applicants begin the tally information before 2022 to have it ready for the announcement? And I think that's about the school travel tallies.
Right. And I think the best guidance I can give at this time is that we don't know when we're going to be able to announce the program. We have a general schedule in mind, but that it may always be slightly changing. So I think the best thing is that any school district or, municipality or county for that measure, any applicant that is interested in trying to get, their information together, I would take care of and do that when you have the maximum amount of students available. So if that's, in the fall, early fall in September, and you feel comfortable with that, that would be acceptable. That would be, but so the maximum amount of students available.
Yeah,
that would be what I would recommend.
And just so you know, if you haven't already reached out to your regional Safe Routes to School coordinator through the New Jersey 8 TMAs, I'm going to give you some contact information on where to find them in a moment. But they can help you with those school travel tallies. So if you are selected as your application is selected to receive grant funding and you're going to be expected to do the school travel tallies, there's help available, and us at the Safe Routes Resource Center as well. So hopefully everybody on this call is gonna get a good application in and maybe get some funding, and at that time, once the selection has happened, we can help with getting those school travel tallies, either through us or your regional team.
Correct. Thank you, Leanne. I just want to also reiterate what Leanne just mentioned. Their saferoutesnj.org. They have information about school travel plans and whatnot that's up there. And, the Rutgers Voorhees, part of their whole mission is to actually partner with the schools and municipalities to prioritize and implement, or provide opportunities for people to, walk, bike, and use other wheeled forms of transportation and move about. So it's important, and they have a whole travel plan that they can help you put a travel plan together. So it's important to reach out to them. You still have time. We have our closing date is October 14th. So there's time.
So Julie, I know you answered a bunch of questions in the Q&A, but was there anything you wanted to elaborate on in some of the answers you gave?
No, I think they're pretty straightforward. The other thing is I would also recommend any applicant that you actually spend time to go and use our handbook that we have posted as a resource. It has a lot of good information. As Leanne has mentioned, we're hoping it's dog-eared and it's post-March and whatnot, and you really thoroughly use that as a guide. Also, we're going to get into this in a little bit. We'll have the opportunity to schedule one-on-one meetings with the area district representative where your municipality or LPA is located, and then also we'll have representatives from the district and also the representative MPO in the state will be also available to help. So I absolutely encourage you to schedule a one-on-one meeting. If you're an advocate and you are not sure and you're just trying to find out more information about a project you have, I would reach out to your local municipality or school district to try to get the project going in that direction. And then also be absolutely mindful of trying to get resolutions of support. I can't stress this enough. It takes time to get that, especially if your project involves a county road and whatnot. It takes time to get that information approved and the letters back and the coverage for that. So that's all I want to say.
Okay. I don't see any more open questions that need to be answered. So I think we're just going to keep going on, but so that we're going to stop again for Q&A in a few minutes. And so you're in the home stretch, hang on there. So if anything still pops into your mind, feel free to put it into Q&A and we'll get to your question either during the presentation or at the next stop. So on that note, I'm going to continue on. Did you have anything else, Trish, to say?
Yeah, I don't know if that came up, but I did put in chat that this recording and the presentation are available on our website. So you don't have to, take copious notes. We will have all that information for you on our website at saferoutesnj.org. And you can watch us over and over again if you want.
You can keep, yeah, this is thrilling, right? Yeah, and also the slides themselves, just a PDF of the slide presentation is also available on our website. So I'm gonna forge forward so we can wrap up, but any questions you have, you can always reach out to us after the fact as well. So don't feel like you have to have every question at your fingertips right now. So on that note, let me move forward. Slides here. There we go. Okay. So, and by the way, Leanne again. So I'm going to wrap this up with a few other things to keep in mind as you're applying for these grants. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about the grant application process. So for a look at the bigger picture, there are 5 stages to the federal grant process, and this is for all federal grants. So currently we're in stage 1, or the pre-award stage, where New Jersey DOT is soliciting grant applications. Following this stage is award notification, where those who are awarded are contacted to receive that they've been awarded, and then they set up a kickoff meeting with DOT after they've received the award notification. Then the next is the authorization stage, where DOT and FHWA, which is the Federal Highway Administration, review all final documents, and you will receive written authorization to proceed at this stage 3 authorization stage. Then the implementation stage, where you perform grant requirements, submit reports and requests and receive payments. And finally, the closeout stage, which finalizes the contract after all aspects of the project are complete. So what I wanted to show you with this is that you're aware that the completion of all 5 of these stages do take several years. However, projects must receive authorization or completion of stage 3 within 2 years of notification of project selection. This includes demonstrating that you have the necessary permits, approvals, and environmental clearances that will be obtained. Some things to keep in mind as you consider applying for these funds. First, completing the authorization process, or stage 3, is necessary prior to funds distribution. So any money spent prior to receiving the official go-ahead from the Federal Highway Administration will not be reimbursed. Second, funds are provided on a reimbursement basis. This means you will need to spend the money up front and present invoices for the money spent before you are reimbursed. So make sure you budget accordingly. And finally, all applicable federal laws and regulations must be followed. So make sure you have the capacity to manage federal grants. I do want to note this, because we are very, very lucky in New Jersey, because by federal law, this type of grant requires a 20% match. However, New Jersey Department of Transportation covers that 20% match with state funds. So no additional match will be required of the applicant. One of the opportunities with the Safe Routes to School program is the Design Assistance Program. This will be available to all 2022 Safe Routes to School program grant recipients. The Design Assistance Program makes available consultant engineering services to assist with the development of plans, specifications, and estimates for projects. New Jersey DOT will establish a pool of engineering design consultants through a quality-based selection process. The purpose of this pre-qualified consultant pool is to aid in the project delivery process by reducing the time required to procure professional services and ensure the consultant selection process is compliant with federal requirements. Use of this consultant pool is not mandatory, but is encouraged in order to shorten design time, reduce costs, and improve the quality of delivery. There are several steps to selecting a consultant and negotiating services as part of this design assistance program, but here's what you just need to know, that if you're selected and choose to use this design assistance program, DOT will hold a specific meeting to discuss the pool of consultants and the full process with you. So more information will follow. And some more great news. We've mentioned it a couple times, but I want to stress this. As part of the grant application process, NJDOT is offering one-on-one meetings to discuss your application, identify any areas of concern, in order to develop better and stronger applications and to answer all of your questions. And these are online meetings, so there's no in-person needed. So here's my recommendation. At the end of our webinar, go to njdotlocalaidrc.com and look up the phone number or the email for the Local Aid Resource Center. I also have it at the end of this presentation, and schedule your meeting today because the time slots will fill up. And some things to keep in mind. Meetings will be held with the local public agency or the applicant. This is not a meeting for you to leave just to consultants. In fact, the consultants shouldn't even set up the meeting. The meeting request should come from the applicant, usually the municipality, not from the grant writers or consultants. Meetings will be held up to an hour, and they're not mandatory, but they are strongly encouraged. So make sure you make the best of your time and have your project questions, materials, and documentation prepared to the best you can in advance. And the more specific you can be about the prospects of your project and any aspects of the application, the better. And I'll stress this again, this is a really fantastic opportunity to discuss your project limits, your design ideas, costs, staffing needs, budgeting, the federal requirements, and timing for implementation. So I highly recommend this is your very next step at the end of this webinar if you haven't done it already. So let's finish with a few tips and strategies. And again, please add your questions to the Q&A because we'll be getting to our second stop time for Q&A very shortly. So first and foremost, Julie just mentioned this, I will reiterate. Make sure you review all the DOT grant application guidance material, and there is a number of them, at the njdotlocalaidrc.com website. Pay close attention to the contents and what I've provided on the screen here, which is the Safe Routes to School Infrastructure Grant Program Handbook. So take a look at this handbook, dog-ear it, highlight it, and make this handbook your friend. All of what is presented today is in this handbook and more. So make sure you download the 2022 version of this handbook. Make sure to include all of the 5 application requirements. For the resolutions, don't upload a blank resolution that's not signed and dated. Unsigned letters and resolutions will not be accepted. And unfortunately, this can be a fairly common mistake. Work early to get the resolutions from all the affected parties, town council and the school board, and if it's a county road that's a part of the project, make sure the county is a part and also submit, it provides you your resolution or letter of support. Use the sample resolution that is the one that includes the maintenance commitment that's provided as part of the SAGE application, which is also available on our website. And make sure your resolution refers to project at which the funds are being sought and that it's passed within the past year. Make sure you also identify your person of responsible charge early. This is a federal requirement. The responsible charge does not need to be an engineer, but they must be a full-time employee of the applicant. Consultant engineers providing engineering services or functioning as the local agency engineer of record are not eligible to serve as the responsible charge. So listen, DOT understands that not all municipalities have a full-time employee. So if this is a concern, please reach out to set up your one-on-one meetings as soon as possible to discuss other options like co-sponsors and partnerships. And you've heard this again, I'll throw it out there again. You don't have to do the student arrival and departure tally for this application. It will be required if you're selected to receive the grant. Another tip and strategy, make sure you show that you are serious about safety. There are a lot of great engineering design manuals for improving safety, specifically for people walking and bicycling. So use those manuals. And also assess your ability to administer a federal aid project and prepare accordingly. So after listening to today's presentation, you may think that this grant feels a bit daunting. And the reality is this grant can be a bit daunting if you don't have the capacity in place. There are resources and technical assistance available to help you with your application, and I'll go into those in a few more minutes, but be sure you know the ins and outs of spending federal funds before making this commitment. Projects will be stronger if you also show strong partnerships and agreements that already exist between the school district and the municipality or other nonprofit organizations with ties to the community and the schools. If multiple schools are impacted, that also makes the case stronger. However, bigger projects should be divided into phases. Only one grant application is allowed per eligible applicant. Another strategy, be thorough. Ratings are based on the content of your application. So don't assume raters know the project or the location. Include the details and documentation necessary to make sure a person reading the application gets the full picture. Your application must stand on its own, and DOT spot checks these locations that you've mentioned in your application. So include photos and maps, identify your areas and issues and safety concerns. Use photos to highlight the safety concerns and problems. Include people in your photos to help show your safety story and why your project is needed. Indicate your construction readiness. Include status of permits, right-of-way, and utility relocations. Include all costs of the project, including construction inspection, and indicate any additional funding sources. Ensure costs are current and comprehensive. One of the resources we also have available is a current cost estimate guide, which can be found along with other application resources on our saferoutesnj.org website. Include maps that provide context, connections, and attractions. So on your map, not only put your project location, but put it within the larger area, show your project limits for the new construction, either by milepost or from Main Street to Broad Street or whatever the geography is, and if applicable, indicate the length of your proposed improvement. Include attractions like places people like to walk and bike to, like kids, like say the libraries or other entertainment or historic landmarks and transit in those kind of areas. And lastly, don't feel like the maps have to be a GIS computer generated map. You can highlight maps on a paper and scan it. You can also use Google Maps, and you can visit our website at saferoutesnj.org for a Google Map tutorial. One of the best things you can do is include good pictures of your proposed project. In the application, you can include up to 10 photos, but I've seen applications where multiple photos are part of one PDF document that provides description, need, and context of the project. In other words, use these photos to tell your safety story. When taking photos, make sure they adequately show the issues. If you have a safety concern, make sure you capture those concerns to the best you can in those photos. A photo of an empty street that doesn't fully capture the safety issues is really not that helpful to reviewers. So think about what kind of photos you want to get and get out there at this time of day that makes the most sense. Also, think about the context of your photos. Don't include photos that are too close up and provide no context. Use people or feet or other ways to provide scale in your pictures. And remember, not all the application reviewers will be part of the on-site fieldwork review, so give them the context they need to properly assess your project. Lastly, a few don'ts to add to your list, and unfortunately, these are mistakes past applicants have made, so don't make these mistakes. Don't submit a completed or partially completed project. Don't propose a project on a county road without consulting the county. Don't propose something that goes against current design standards. Project must comply with current ADA standards. Don't propose a sidewalk without accompanying safe street crossings. And don't propose a project in a neighborhood where residents have actively protested against it. Projects that can show community support receive higher ratings. Think about costs. These kind of applications and this kind of grant should be for bigger projects. So with federal money, my recommendations is don't apply for a grant if the total cost is under $250,000 to $300,000. Okay, we are almost done. We're into the final stretch. So I'm going to give you some important resources for next steps. But before I do that, I forgot. I was going to tell you about the state-funded programs. So for the state-funded programs, the Transportation Trust Fund provides $400 million in state aid to municipalities and counties for local transportation improvements. Each fiscal year, New Jersey DOT issues a solicitation announcement to municipalities inviting them to apply for funding for their specific project needs. Applicants receive points based on various criteria, including existing conditions, safety improvements, and access to public services. Other important criteria for the municipalities include the municipality's special designation, whether you've received an allotment within the last 3 years, and the award and closeout performance on previously awarded grants. An extra point is given to towns with complete and Green Streets policies on the state funding as well. A new requirement this year for the state funding, Applicants applying for state programs will be required to use the new Project Management Reporting System, or PMRS, to submit resolutions. The new PMRS shift most project management, accounting, contracting, and other functions to an automated system. Training on this, if you're interested, is available through the Local Aid Resource Center under the tab Resources. Here's another thing to keep in mind when you're looking at funding opportunities. The New Jersey Transportation Infrastructure Bank is an independent state financing authority responsible for providing and administrating low interest rate loans to qualified municipalities, counties, and regional authorities in New Jersey for the purpose of financing transportation infrastructure projects. So check out the NJTIB website to see any updated interest rates and to make an appointment with Infrastructure Bank staff to discuss your project. So just go to their website and contact them if you're interested in a low interest rate loan. And these are low interest rate loans. If you're thinking about your project and maybe you're realizing that maybe you need help creating like a larger bicycle and pedestrian plan. One of the things the department has in the Bureau of Safety Bicycle and Pedestrian Programs is they offer planning technical assistance through their local technical assistance program. To date, this Bureau has funded plans in over 100 towns through their on-call consultant program. On-call consultants are paired with your town to help create the process and plan to improve conditions for walking and bicycling. So if you're interested in doing a larger project, a planning project, please email bikeped@njdot.nj.gov. There's also many recent resources that can help guide municipalities on policy and design that address walking and bicycling, including several newer guides that are specific to New Jersey. For example, New Jersey Department of Transportation's Complete and Green Streets Design Guide, the Complete and Green Streets Model Policy and Guide, and the newly released Planning for Greenways Guidebook. In addition, the Department of Transportation offers the New Jersey School Zone Design Guide for more specific school zone safety designs, and the School Bike Parking Guide, which is not only helpful for bike parking information for schools, but also throughout municipalities. Those are just a few resources your county and a few of the resources at DOT, but your county and MPO may have many more. So show your commitment to safety. So think of these projects as more than just some new road striping and a few signs. Consider designs that will make a real impact of the safety of people walking and bicycling. The key is all environmental and engineering plans and specifications shall conform to engineering design standards and must be prepared by a professional engineer licensed to practice in New Jersey. Okay, a few more resources. I told you I'd give you a bunch. So here's another great one. If you haven't already taken a look, the Federal Highway Administration's Proven Safety Countermeasures, which are evidence-based treatments and strategies that practitioners can use to implement to successfully address crashes to achieve safety goals. So I highly suggest you go look up Proven Safety Countermeasures if you haven't already. And also, we've mentioned it several times, gonna mention it again, New Jersey DOT's Local Aid Resource Center. It was created to assist each community with project planning, grant applications, project delivery, and guidance through the federal process and more. This is always a great place to start for all your NJDOT grant information. And they have a help desk for questions and a website with a variety of information and resources, including they're kind of becoming an information hub for all the DOT grants available in a variety of information. There's videos, there's social media. If you haven't already liked and followed the Resource Center in social media, again, I highly recommend hit that like on Twitter, Facebook, whatever. There is still a DOT website for the Division of Local Aid and Economic Development, and all the information we talked about today is also on their website as well. And as we noted, the Department of Transportation's Division of Local Aid and Economic Development is divided into 4 districts, plus staff at the DOT headquarters at the main office. So your local district representative will be managing grants that are awarded and selected to receive funding. So keep that in mind as you proceed with these grants. Okay, another resource I mentioned I promised I'd get to. Free technical assistance is available through New Jersey's 8 regional transportation management associations, which cover all 21 counties in the state. So staff within these associations are available to help with several walking and bicycling initiatives, including Safe Routes to School programs, completing school travel plans, student travel, arrival and dismissal tallies, walk and bike to school days, and more. So if you haven't already, go ahead and reach out to your regional TMA staff to get some help as you proceed with your applications. And there's also us at the New Jersey Safe Routes Resource Center. We also provide a number of resources to assist with your grant application, including estimating improvement costs, engineering and design solutions, examples of school wellness policies and resolutions of support, and much more. So our website is saferoutesnj.org, and we also have a portal through our website on how to exactly reach your regional TMA Safe Routes to School coordinator. Now, I don't want to miss this resource either. So if you have, if you are in Mercer, Burlington, Camden, or Gloucester counties, your regional MPO, the Delaware Valley Regional Planning Commission, recently launched a regional sidewalk inventory that maps every sidewalk, curb ramp, and crosswalk in the greater Philadelphia region. The Sidewalk Gap Analysis Explorer helps communities around the region prioritize the pedestrian improvements that will make the greatest impact. This is an interactive web map that can help you understand how your Safe Routes to School project will improve pedestrian connectivity in your community. Now, another website to keep in mind is the Federal Aid Essentials for Local Public Agencies, local public agency, AKA usually municipality. It offers a central online library of informational videos and resources that address complex regulations and requirements of the federal aid programs, but they actually provide them in pretty easy to understand concepts and illustrated examples and videos. So check that out if you've got some questions. There's also training. So really, the department provides so many resources in so many different ways. So there are training programs available through the Center for Advanced Infrastructure and Transportation, also called CATE, at Rutgers. This is one of our sister organizations, and they offer webinars that are certified for continuing education credits for several professional organizations. And there are several courses about managing federal grants, including grant management for federal aid projects, federal aid responsible charge training, crash analysis tool, and more. Okay, we're wrapping up now. As a reminder, there's a few more webinars coming up. You can register and participate, or better, send them to your friends if they are interested in this as well. After today's session, our recording will be available on our website at saferoutesnj.org. And so give us a little bit to render the video and look for it hopefully tomorrow to be up on our videos page on our website. So that's it for me. A reminder about our key dates. Be sure to schedule your one-on-one meeting at njdot.localaidrc.com and start now to make your October 14th deadline. And I know that seems far away, but there's a lot of pieces to this grant application. So go ahead and go into Sage, start your application, start pulling down all these resources. Like I said, dog ear that handbook so you can successfully make it to your October 14th deadline. Okay, we're at the next Q&A piece. So
Thank
Trish,
you, and Trish. Thank you, Leanne and Trish, very much. That was good. Does anybody have any questions?
I can go through some. I know you've answered a lot of them, Julie. So maybe I'll just put
Sure.
a couple that would be nice to apply live. Oh, maybe we already covered this one about the travel tallies. Sorry, I think we already answered that one. Correct. Should applications begin to tally information before 2022 to have it ready for the announcement?
Yeah, I just want to stress to applicants, I see there's one, you really have to be within the 2-mile radius for this particular program. That is a program requirement. And as I had mentioned prior, pay attention to the resolutions of support. That's very important. And again, we have all the resources available to you. And I encourage you to sign up for one-on-ones or attend another session. So does a municipality need a complete streets policy to qualify for safe routes funding? No, but it provides additional points to an application. So again, I recommend you go out to the handbook and it'll explain what you need and where to go to get that. Okay. All right. I think that's it, ladies.
No, I think you're right.
Yeah. Great.
Yeah.
Well, I hope we answered everybody's questions. And of course, as with anything, you know, that question that pops into your head as soon as we hit thank you and end, please reach out to us.
Absolutely.
You can reach out through email or phone. We are getting messages even if we are remote still somewhat. You know, good luck with your applications. We hope that this was helpful to you. We really appreciate your time spending with us today. And I hope you're able to make it to that October 14th deadline. And let's work together to make this state safer for kids walking and biking. That's our goal, and we'd love to help you get there.
Thank you again, and good luck with your application, everyone. Thank you.